Okay, hi everybody. I am here today to show you my new torch system. This torch system has kind of been a long time coming for me. I've worked with a lot of different torches at school and at work and in other people's studios. And after a lot of research and a lot of different setups and experiences with different setups, I have come to find, I think, what is my perfect at-home studio torch. And I want to share that with you guys today. So the reason I started even looking for a new torch system was there were a few different reasons, but my main reason was that I wanted to have a safer home environment. So I was interested in something that didn't involve large tanks. Like my standard system here is a B acetylene and atmospheric oxygen setup, which I also love. But for in terms of insurance and keeping my home safe and the rest of my assets safe and my neighbors safe and everybody safe, I kind of started researching a torch system that I could fall in love with that was also not going to be as risky as managing larger tanks in the home. That being said, with proper use, tanks are totally great, and I don't harbor some fear about them because I'm educated about how to take care of them and how to use them and how to properly care for them. So this was more about finding a way to combine the best of all the worlds for my home studio use. And that the bottom line for me on that was insurance. How do I insure safely the space that I'm in? So how I came across this system was kind of through trial and error in terms of doing research and figuring out what companies offered the different pieces and parts that I wanted. I knew I wanted a Little Smith torch with page tool adapters. At work, we use Little Smith torch and do all of our goldsmithing and silversmithing and small scale casting and stuff with our Little Smith. And recently, through some research as well, found out more about the page tool adapter for the Little Smith torch, which basically it's also available for the Hoke torch as well. You get an adapter and then you get Page Tools versions of their tips, which are kind of like they're kind of like a combination of the midget tips. They actually fit the midget head as well, so they're interchangeable, but they're more like a small rosebud almost tip. They have like radiating heat along the exterior as well as a pinpoint flame. So I knew once I started using this Page tool adapter with their heads that are available, that I was going to find a torch that could kind of cross over from the precision tips of the Little Smith and allow me to do fine pinning and goldsmithing, and then using the Page adapter to give me a similar flame and a similar heat level to what my atmospheric oxygen and acetylene tank allows me to do with my larger scale silversmithing or annealing or small scale sand casting or whatever you want to do from home. So once I kind of narrowed down exactly the torch that I wanted, and I've tried a lot of torches, a lot of people are a fan of the midget, a lot of people are a fan of the Hoke torch, and really I think just getting as much experience in different environments and figuring out the kind of work that you want to make and how to best make it with the resources that are available to you, like that's the only way you're really going to know. And again, I was kind of fortunate enough to be able to try different setups: oxygen acetylene, oxygen propane, oxygen natural gas, Hoke torches, larger annealing torches. You know, you just kind of got to figure out what you want to make and then what you need to make it. But for me, I kind of figured out that this was my ideal torch, and it didn't make me feel like I was downgrading from my acetylene air, which I love. I didn't feel like I was limited anymore by having a torch like this. So after I figured out my torch, my ideal torch, I could move on to how exactly I wanted to supply my oxygen and gas. And in this case, I'm using propane. And do that in a way that I felt safe in my home studio. So this tank is about to be gone, and I'm going to be working only with this setup here. So I did a bunch of research to figure out how to supply my oxygen and how to supply my gas in a way that was safe. So this is a disposable propane tank, and it's only like, 16 ounces. This is a couple dollars. I don't know how long this will last me. I don't work a whole lot out of my home studio. I work full time outside my studio, so I've heard that this can last up to about a month for some people, even with heavy use. I have yet to determine how long this is going to take me to use, but for the cost of it, I can have several on hand if I run out, and it's available and accessible and no big deal. And then this is an oxygen concentrator. So what we're starting to see on the market is companies taking these units that are kind of either used or worn out or not suitable for the healthcare industry any longer, and they're being kind of refurbished and funneled into industries more like ours. So like glass blowers or silversmiths or whatever can use these units to supply oxygen. I've seen these available in, they don't really go in PSI, they're like flow meters instead. They don't produce pressurized gas. They concentrate oxygen from the air up to a certain percentage, like on average 93%. Okay, so I bought a unit directly from Extreme Oxygen, which I had a great experience working directly with them. I didn't go through their website. It was a little bit difficult for me to navigate, but just contacting them directly and working with them directly worked out great for me. They answered all my questions and they were efficient and got me the product that I was looking for. Most of what you're going to find on the market, like from Rio Grande, is going to be an EX5 unit, which produces like PSIs up to like maybe 7 PSI. If you want something that has stronger PSI, that's maybe, normally you'd be controlling that PSI with a larger oxygen tank, and you could ramp the PSI up to whatever you need for the job that you're doing. You're kind of limited a little bit with the concentrators, and you need to figure out what range you want your PSI to be, because the only control you're going to have over it is the flow regulator here, which is always going to be, you're always going to set it to give you the most amount of flow, and then the flow only is determined again by what you can get out of your handpiece. So, and same with propane, at least in this instance, it's got a single regulator for a disposable tank, and you can only, you open this fully, and then the rest of the control is only in the handpiece. So I'd say that that's the only thing I don't really like about it, is that, I can't set my PSIs exactly to what I want them to be, but as far as I can see and as far as I've used it, I don't really see it as a limitation compared to all the advantages of this system. And again, I kind of went with something that was in the middle, so this produces technically like a 10 PSI equivalent. And they're available in 15 PSI as well. I don't know when that would be a necessity. I've practiced with this torch melting, 3 or 4 ounces of sterling silver, and it can handle it just fine. So I'm pretty content with this system, so I kind of wanted to show you it a little bit in detail. So how this works is, unlike when you have a normal oxygen tank and you set your pressure, this is not going to pressurize any air. It's a continuous flow. So you plug it into an electrical outlet, which is great because you never have to buy oxygen again. Like, yes, it's using electricity to run it, but you never have to replace a bottle of oxygen. So you're saving, like, for whatever this costs to set it up initially, you're saving in the long run, and maybe even paying for itself by not ever having to purchase oxygen again. So that's another advantage of this system, is the only thing that you're supplying then is whatever fuel source that you're committed to using. And another thing about this system is that you're not like under obligation to use a disposable propane tank. A lot of people might decide that they want to hook theirs up to a barbecue size propane tank, and have a proper regulator and flashback arrestor on that kind of setup, and are more comfortable with that. The only reason I chose this is, again, for insurance purposes. I wanted to keep it where these units are acceptable to have within the home without causing any additional risk in terms of insurance purposes. So anyway, in order to run this, you want to make sure that you don't ever back up the oxygen in the line. So it's a little bit different in that you kind of always keep your oxygen running, or at least cracked open on your handpiece, to allow the flow to continue from what it's generating and pushing through the line. So when you light your torch, you normally crack your gas open, you light it, and then you introduce your oxygen. And you're still going to do that. It's just that you're going to always have your oxygen cracked open. You're going to close it, then open your gas, light it, and then reintroduce it. So that amount of time doesn't really cause any damage to the unit in terms of backing up oxygen in a line. But it's just advised that, like, you want to keep it at least cracked and allowing airflow through it the rest of the time if it's not in use. Or you just turn it off or whatever if you don't want to listen to it going on in your studio during other tasks that you might be performing. So mine is a little bit loud, but I still love it. It's like 60 decibels, I'd say, on average, so it's going to be a little bit of stress for me to talk over the noise of it. But I'll kind of demo it for you. I'd say most of them on the market probably are like 40 to 50 decibels, which is really not that bad. I mean, if you've got like a vent system running and you've got this running, it's really not that big of a deal. You're going to be concentrating on what you're doing. And again, it's like, is it a drawback? I don't really think, compared to the advantages, that it is a huge drawback at all. I'm sure there are things I could do to make this quieter in my studio as well. Like put it on a mat or some kind of carpeting. You don't want to encase it because, again, it's drawing oxygen from the air. So it's going to generate heat in its internal working parts. So you don't want to like enclose it just to keep it quieter, or keep it in a locked closet where it can't circulate air. But like, if your hoses are long enough, you can move it further away from your working area or into a quieter area, or run lines further away toward your studio if you wanted to do that. There's all kinds of other things you could do. So anyway, this is how it goes here. So I'm going to open up my propane all the way. This is just a simple propane regulator. Okay, this is like $50, like a couple dollars for the can. And then you want to leave, you can hear it running. That's my gas. You leave it closed. And then I'm going to crack my oxygen. Okay. And then I'm going to flip this on. So this flow reader kind of just shows that it's cycling through. You want to have this, increased and fully open. It's really not that loud. It does take a few minutes, technically, for it to produce oxygen at the purity that their standard purity, which is like 93 or 94% pure oxygen from the air. So they say it takes, a few minutes to generate that kind of purity. I mean, if you just go use it, I don't think that it's really noticeable. Like if I turn it on right now, I don't know that I would really notice a huge difference between what it's producing now and what it's going to produce in 15 minutes, like in terms of it really changing the use of your torch. But just it theoretically takes like a few minutes or 10 minutes or something for it to generate that level of purity. Which is why a lot of people in the studio would just leave this running and leave their oxygen cracked and, go on to other projects and then come back to it and use it when they need to. I personally would probably, turn it on when I want to use it and turn it off when I'm done using it. So it's on here and it's on here, and my flow is open. This knob is opened all the way just to give me as much flow as the machine will allow at any given time. And if I want to light it, and I can hear my oxygen flowing out of it, you just close your oxygen, you crack your propane or whatever gas you're using there, and then you reintroduce slowly your oxygen by opening up that valve. So this is page tip tool number 5. So this is the largest, not including the rosebud tips, of the tips that they have available. So you can ramp this up several times and get, and see, that's the maximum. I can't get more oxygen than the gas that I'm introducing. So that's about the maximum heat that I can produce. But that's several ramps, and so that's a fair amount. And again, like the amount of heat that I can produce with this is very comparable and totally sufficient for anything that I would want to do. I can do my metal stamps and get to the temperatures that I need to harden those. Again, I can do some small scale casting. I think you could even do more than that. I just haven't really experimented fully with it yet. So again, this is kind of the torch, and I can use the small tips on this. I can use the page tool tips. I can use the midget tips on top of the adjuster if I want. So I can kind of get a lot of versatility out of this one, just even compared to the tips that are available to me with the Acetylene Air. So turning it off, you know, you just close your oxygen, close your propane, and then you want to open this back up again so that open your oxygen back up so that you're allowing a continuous flow again through the system and you're not backing air up. If I close this, eventually a service required light will turn on because it's indicating that there's no flow coming through the line. So this is saying service required because I don't have a release for the oxygen that's being produced. So I'm sure that that would eventually create a problem with your unit and whatever, you'd have to figure out how to service it or anyway, so this is kind of the general rundown. So far I love it. I think that any of the drawbacks that exist are like far outweighed by everything that's positive about it, and I really could not be any happier with what it can do, and I think I'm gonna love it forever. And I hope that if you're on the fence about getting a system like this, that that you give it a shot, or you know, at least consider it as a viable option that can give you the best of a lot of worlds that are out there in terms of torches. So I hope that that's helpful, even though it's a lot of information. I hope it's helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know, and thanks for listening. Bye.